This video is sponsored by DXN Provisions. It is thanks to them that I got all the parts needed to be able to make this video for you guys. This video is also made in partnership with Mass Damper and Black Fabrica. Mass Damper will be painting and sticker tuning the car, and Black Fabrica tools and accessories were used during the build. You can visit all of my partners' website and the links in the video description down below. In this video, we are showing you the parts needed for this build and making cuts on the MA chassis. First part is 95281. We're going to need this for the chassis and the terminals that are going to be in the kit. Next is the 95445 Avante Mark III Azure polycarbonate body. Next is 95454 lightweight HG gunmetal rollers with the 15449 17mm plastic ring rollers, and 95438, two of them for the rear. These are custom colors that are bought from DXN Provisions. You can get them from there as well. Next is two of the 72mm hollow drive shafts. Next is 15390 fluorine coated gear shafts, and one of 95338. You just need the 520 bearings that are from this roller set. You should get three of these spacer sets, 15473, just in case you need more, and three of 15510 countersunk screws in case you need an extra, and one of 15519 HG round hole ball bearings for the drive shafts, and 15518 FRP brake set that should be used for the front. Next is 15472 rear underguard. Next is three of 15495 HG carbon 19mm. Next is 15497 to 1319. You're going to need this for the mass damper mounts. 5498, you're going to need two of them, one for the brake and one for the body damper frame. Next is 95114 HG carbon rear multi-roller setting stay. Next is two of the 15459 AR side mass damper set. You just need the dampers from this. And this is going to have the 95119 HD Pro for the motor. And six of the 15500 blue aluminum lock nuts. You're going to need 28 lock nuts in total. Okay, first part is taking the chassis, also the gears that are coming with this kit. These are the 3.5 right now. And we're going to be using white A parts for this build. We're going to be using that as like the other color so that it doesn't seem like it's very homogeneous. It's all black. So we just need the terminals from this one, the gears, and the chassis. And this is a prototype build by one of my friends, and I think his brother as well too. Two of my buddies, they made this MA chassis 0 degree trimmer for the Proxxon MF17. This is when I was testing the fit, just to see how it would work, because it's basically just the first time that I'm using this setup. So this allows me to cut the front bumper mounts, you know, those two holes where you could mount the position of the front bumper, to see how it would fit properly. And yeah, this is actually quite nice. And this isn't being sold as far as I know, and I just need to talk to my friends to see if they're willing to make more of these or something like that, but I don't think they are. It's basically they made these for themselves, and they let me borrow it for this video, and so that I could show you guys what we've been doing here. And yeah, I'm doing it on the white chassis just so that I could do a test, just to make sure that everything works the way that I thought it would, and it looks like it's working just nicely as well too. And yeah, it's it basically holds a chassis in 0 degree, and then you can make cuts using the Proxxon MF7T. And here we're going to start cutting off some pieces of the rear bumper using the Proxxon cutting disc as well too, and the rotary tool. First you cut off the wings, at least that's what I do, and then after you cut that off, you cut it this way as well, so that you could actually cut the ends off. Basically, I'm just making relief cuts first, and then after you make the relief cuts, you can actually cut to basically as close as you can to where you want it to be. And here is cutting the wing mounts. Those are relief cuts as well too. I'm not cutting them directly where I want them to be. Those are just initial cuts. And here, what we're doing is doing the fit, basically checking the fit of the rear bumper and where the front bumper is going to be. So here we're just mounting the rear multi-roller setting stay, and we're going to be fitting what the brake set is going to be like. Basically, that's very similar to the brake set that I'm going to be using, except we're going to be using the carbon one. So here, we're just mounting it onto the rear multi-roller setting stay. And then after that, we're going to mount it on the MA chassis, just to see how it's going to fit inside of the dimension box. Now, this configuration of the back is going to be the final configuration of where all of the screws are going to be locked in. It was the front that I had to go change the way that was made. What you're going to see in later parts, not in this part, but in probably part 2, is that I changed the dimension fit. And here we're going to take out the FRP rear bumper. This is going to be actually for the front now, and we're going to start cutting it up to see where the front bumper is going to be. And as you could see, the way I made a shallow cut over here. I didn't go all the way. I cut the first hole initially, and then after that, we decided that we were going to use not the first 2 holes that you're going to see me use, but the 2 holes that are further in. Those are going to be the final holes where the bumper is going to be mounted. But in this video, I was just checking the position just to see where it would fit, and it looked like it was okay at the time, but I ended up changing it in a later part of the video. So here, as you can see, the 0-degree mount allowed me to actually slide the FRP and then check it for position. Now we are doing an additional trim just to be able to mount the position of the front bumper to where it's going to be finally stopping. The cut here is that it allows me to position it properly once I actually have the bumper set in place, so that the plastic of the actual chassis itself will support the back side of the bumper, so that both of them are touching each other and that they are going to be supporting each other. If there's a bit of a gap in between the chassis and the bumper, what that allows is that too much wiggle, and the wiggle will actually end up causing the problems maybe for the screws, and then once the screws get loose, and then the FRP starts to loosen up as well, and you just generally don't want that to happen. So here, as you can see, I'm mounting it on the first hole. It looked like it was going to fit just fine initially, but that's going to end up changing at some point. So yeah, from here, there you go. As you could see, the fit was a little too long. So what I ended up doing was that I ended up shortening the bumper again, so that it's a little bit, so that it's 1 more hole in. So, all right, so what I'm going to be doing soon is that it's going to be readjusted so that the whole bumper is going to fit. So what's happening is that initially on that first test, the way that I thought I could fix it was to move the hole 1 more in. But what I ended up doing was I kept the position of that rear brake that it was initially in, and then instead I pushed the front bumper back 1 more hole. And that actually ended up being a much better solution to what I'm showing you right now. And I'm leaving this in so that you guys could see what I do in terms of prototyping, basically, because I haven't done an MA chassis build for a while, and then this is the first time I'm using that front bumper. And there you go. Right now it fits, but that's not the final configuration. Because if I did it this way, the front bumper would be too far forward and the rear bumper would be too short. So this is going to be fixed in a future part of the video, and I will show you guys that once that video is released. Now that we've decided on the position of the front bumper, we're going to be cutting off the side mounts of the front bumper. And then we're going to cut off the length from the front side of the bumper. That's when we're going to decide where to mount the front roller mounts, basically. So after this, we're going to do a lengthwise cut, not a lengthwise cut, but a horizontal cut to where the bumper holes are going to be set up. And then that's going to help us determine exactly where the rollers are going to be sitting. But you don't want to cut all the way to the point where you're going to want the rollers mounted. You want to cut it short in case you need to cut it again. Because if you overcut, the dimensions are going to be wrong. And that's going to end up giving you some problem initially. Or if you cut too much, then you basically made the mistake of overcutting the chassis. Because if you overcut that front bumper, it's going to create that same wiggle that I was talking about on the bumper mount from the underside. You want the rollers to be supported by the front side of the bumper as well too, so that there's no wiggle. Once there's no wiggle, the contact is direct. And then there's a lot less flex on the front bumper side, which is, you want less front flex on the front bumper. You want the whole chassis, the rest of the chassis, to flex a little bit more. Okay, so these are the Ferrimiche mounts, and you can get them. And also, they're going to be linked in the video description down below. I have these mounted now so that we could actually start doing the battery compartment cuts. Initially, on this part, we're going to be cutting the rear off of the bumper. What we're going to do is we're going to make it so that it's even at the back. So what we have now is a 1/8 end mill bit, and we're basically making it so that the rear bumper is as even as possible in terms of the way that it was cut. So after that first pass, I basically made it homogeneous on both sides, basically even. They're both the same length now after that cut. So here, this is a 1/16 end mill bit, and that's going to be used for cutting the compartment out. So here, I made a mistake and I went with a much slower RPM. And when you're making cuts on plastic with slower RPM, what that does is that it melts the plastic and then it makes it stick to the end mill bit. So that ended up ruining the end mill bit. So don't do what I just did just now. So if you're using a mill for the first time, then you are going to want to not do what I just did. So here, this is me using that replacement bit, and then we are going to cut at a much faster RPM. So here you go. There you go. That's what it's supposed to look like. When you're cutting plastic, it's supposed to flake off like this. On a higher RPM, this is what it's going to give you. There you go. So I'm blasting away the extra plastic that comes out of the compartment. And then once that's done, you're going to see that the compartment is going to basically just fall out, and you could poke it and then it just would come off. So the complete underside would be shown. You can see the battery come out of it at this point. So here, pretty much we've made our cuts. And then after we're done here, basically just that underside had just come off. Now, and then we're gonna take a look at it just to see how even and uniform it is. And basically this first cut is going to allow you to decide the position of the other cut on the other side, because you want to make it as even as possible. So now what I'm doing is that I'm using Tamiya tape to mark off the borders of the end, basically, of where the cut is going to be done. So this is as far long as you're going to cut, and then this is on the other side is going to be where the position of the end mill bit is going to come to. We're not going to extend past that. You want to make it as uniform and as even as possible so that there isn't going to be a difference in position. So now we are remounting it back onto the mill table so that we could actually take a look at what's inside, what we're going to be able to do in terms of the cut. And what we're going to see now is that we're going to be going to that same position. We're not going to extend past it, so we're doing the same cut, going with a higher RPM rotation so that we can flake the plastic off of the chassis like that. And then we're going to go lengthwise cut as well, and then we're going to be able to remove the compartment as well too on this side. And taping it off like this basically allows you to control the position, so that you can tell where you're going to stop. And basically, if you're doing this, kind of do the same thing. If you use a tape that's about a fairly bright color, and then that bright color makes it easy for you to see where the end mill bit is going to be sitting. So here, we're going to go a little bit deeper. I've adjusted the depth, and then we're going to make a deeper cut right here. There you go. After you've made the cut, basically the compartment just falls out. And here I'm making another pass with the 1/8 end mill bit so that I could make a bit of a cleaner cut around the edges of the compartment. And using a flashlight just to see the position of the end mill bit. I don't want to overcut. If you overcut, you can change the shape of it by mistake, and you don't want to do that. You want to make it as uniform as possible from both sides. So as you could see, a little bit of the wall had been cut off as well too, so that it gives me a little bit more room for the chassis to flex. And one of the issues that you're going to get with MA chassis is that it can often be way too stiff. So doing this cut for the MA chassis allows it to have a little bit more flex and gives you a little bit more forgiveness in terms of how much it can absorb when it lands. So basically it does two things. It allows you to make the chassis lighter, and then in addition to that, it also allows you to give it a little bit more flex. And the biggest problem that MA chassis usually has is stiffness, so this should help minimize that as well too, or increase the flex. So here you go. We've basically finished the inner cut of that, and as you can see, it's fairly uniform. The batteries slip in just nicely, and I was really happy the way that this turned out. You can use a rotary tool to make that cut too, but honestly, if you have the mill, you should do it with a mill. It'll just be much more accurate when you do it. And here, we're going to be finishing up the side mounts of the chassis, because you don't need them anymore. I'm going to be using a body damper setup on this thing. So here I just cut off the excess, and then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be using the edge of this cutter to be able to grind onto a little bit of a much closer cut of the chassis, so that I can make the wing mounts for the dampers basically disappear into the chassis. And I'm not going to overcut it. I'm going to leave it there. So I'm basically using the X-Acto knife and file to be able to make it smooth on the edges, so that he can leave as little material as possible. Because if you leave too much of that out, you're basically just leaving weight on the chassis that doesn't need to be there anymore, basically. So I'm just removing any excess stuff that the chassis just doesn't need anymore, and doing this can help minimize the weight as well too. So it works both ways. It kind of also helps too in the stiffness as well, because if you actually look at it, the wing mounts for the dampers are actually things that add stiffness to the chassis. And now here we're cutting the back off. Some of it needed to be be more uniform as well too. So on one side of the mill, you can cut up to just a certain amount, because the table is limited in its how far in or how far out it can move. So here it is, the final product. And as you can see on this side, I've already made some 0-degree trims like the way that I did on the wide chassis. So over there, it's going to be left like that for now. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make a bigger cut later on. And at the back too, I cut a little bit of the rear mounts too. It was already 0 degrees, but doing this allows me to raise the brakes by about a 0.5 millimeter as well. So I did a 0.5 millimeter trim on that one. Thank you once again to DXN Provisions for sponsoring this video. It is thanks to them that we could make this video for you guys. Check them out in the links in the video description down below, along with my other partners, Mass Damper and Black Fabrica. This is for part 1. Part 2 will be released in about a week, so stay tuned for that. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share. And thanks for watching. Go race.